Hi, and welcome to day 2 of the 5-day Canva challenge. I am so excited to have you back, and today we're going to be talking all about font and text, or as we like to refer to it in the design world, typography. We're also going to be talking about how to really maximize your impact with copy. So let's get started. So rule number 1 when it comes to text and copy is less is always more. What does this mean? It means don't overcomplicate or overfill that small little square with a whole bunch of text that will overwhelm your audience while they're scrolling by, and they'll just keep on scrolling because it becomes part of the white noise that is Instagram. If you want to make an impact, less is always more. Keep your design as simple as possible, and then put all of the relevant information in the copy or description section below your image. You want your image to act as a scroll stopper, and then for people who are actually interested or engaged with your content, they're going to read the description below. So remember, less is always more. I know you want to fill your work with as much possible information or relevant information for potential buyers, but the truth is, if you're putting too much information, then those potential buyers are scrolling by. They're not stopping to read what's in the description box below. So let's make an impact with your image and then put all of the copy in the copy section. So how do we add copy to our image? Let's start off by pressing T on our keyboard, and that will bring up our text box. Then we're just going to want to place it anywhere on the image for now. We'll talk about layout in another video. And you're just going to write the relevant context that you need for this particular image. So for me, it's going to be just listed, and I am going to make this quite large. Just going to want to fill out almost all of this top area. I'm not going to worry about anything other than just placing it and creating a large headline. We want people to know that this property is on the market and it's available. Our job is now done for now. So now, if you remember what we spoke about yesterday about defining our audience, we want to do the same thing when it comes to copy. So we want to create another text box. So I'm going to press T again on my keyboard, and that's going to bring up another text box, and I'm just going to place it above the just listed. And I'm going to think about who I want to attract with this particular home. So who is going to want to live here? And I'm thinking that this particular home, for the purpose of this tutorial, is going to be for first-time home buyers. It's relatively inexpensive. It will get them into the market. It's the perfect starter home for first-time home buyers. So I'm going to speak directly to them. It might not be just for first-time home buyers, but at least we're speaking to that specific demographic, and then anyone else who fits on the outside of that nucleus will also be attracted to this particular post. So for example, if you're an investor and you know that you can rent this to young couples who are looking or saving for a home, then you might stop on this as well. You're not directly speaking to that investor, but because you said first-time home buyer, they're thinking, oh, well, if it's good for them, it's probably going to be a great investment. So rule number 2 is, defining your audience. Yesterday we spoke about how important it is to define your audience when it comes to photos. Choose a photo that's going to attract the perfect buyer for this home. Well, now with copy, we're going to do the exact same thing, but now we're going to speak directly to them. So now that you've chosen the photo for your potential audience, which for the purpose of this tutorial, let's say it's first-time home buyers, then now I want to speak directly to them. So I'm going to add a subheading here that says attention first-time home buyers. So we're going to say attention first-time home buyers. So now we're speaking directly to somebody, and we've said just listed, so they know that this is a property that is available. And pretty much this is as much as you want to say on the card. Now, if you notice in our example, we did add also a URL to direct them to, which is completely fine. If you have a property website, then of course add that information, because people might not want to read your description below. They might just want to exit out of Instagram and go directly to that URL to find out more information about the property. So that's totally fine. You can add something on the bottom like that, which I'm going to do right here. 123 yourlisting.com. Don't worry about the gray behind it. We're going to be talking about that on another day too. Today I just really want you to focus on your fonts and your copy. So now that we have everything in place, it's time for rule number 3. Choose 2 fonts maximum. You do not need a whole bunch of fonts all over your card. It's so much fun to play with fonts, and I understand that, but from a design perspective, it starts to look extremely sloppy. So design rule number 3 when it comes to putting together DIY your own marketing pieces, stick to 2 fonts, 3 max if you know what you're doing, but it's always safe with 2 fonts. If you're a modern brand, for example, you're going to want to choose modern fonts, and modern fonts are generally fonts that are sans serif, meaning that they don't have feet. This is a modern font. It is very linear in style, and if you are more of a classic luxe, more of a high-end brand, then you might want something like this one. And if you notice, it has little feet. This is what we call little feet here, little elements that stick out from the lettering. And that's a more classic, high-end luxury look. So if that's what you're looking for, this would be what the kind of fonts that you are interested in. If you're modern, then you're looking for more linear fonts. Now, pairing fonts can get confusing. Canva has a million options. It can become overwhelming. So in the email that we sent out today, we provided a link to a blog post where we lay out all kinds of different font pairings from Canva, and it's broken up into our 6 brand styles. So if you're not familiar with the 4th Street 6, we have 6 brand styles. And most people fit into 1 or 2 of those brand styles. And if you're not sure which one you are, then head over to DIYbrandquiz.com. You can take the 2-minute quiz that will give you your brand style and also a 10-page guide that gives you imagery, fonts, colors, resources that will help guide you as to what will look good for your particular brand style. So this is a great place to start. So if you don't know, you have no idea, font pairings just making your brain go, then head over there, because we even have font pairings in that guide for you that are Canva fonts. So you can come back here after and just put those fonts in, plug and play, and you're ready to go. We're trying to take as much of the hard design stuff out of this process for you as possible. So that's a great place to start. Love DIYing your own stuff, you love playing around with fonts, then by all means, just go ahead and play around with it. One tip that I'm going to give you is that always works pretty much across the board is to pair a serif font, so the ones with feet, with a sans serif font, and that always looks fantastic. So if you're not sure of your brand style, you don't feel like taking the quiz, you just want to get this done quickly, then it's always a good idea to either pair a serif font with sans serif or stick to 2 modern fonts, and you'll be safe. So that's it for typography. Rule number 4 is don't be afraid to be bold. What does this mean? It means make your headline huge. It means don't be afraid to make a headline really, really big, even if it covers up some of your image. We want people to read it. We don't want them to accidentally miss it. So if you have a headline like just listed and you don't feel like it's bold enough, some tricks with typography in Canva is to head over to the spacing tool and reduce the spacing between the letters. And what that does is it allows you to now grab this side, this corner, and bring it out to make it even larger. And why do we want to do this? Why do we want to make this bold? Because if you have just this one thing on your card, you need to grab somebody's attention quickly. And we all know that on Instagram, we are scrolling so quickly that sometimes if we don't know the context of the photo that we're looking at, we're going to scroll on by. So don't be afraid to be bold. Make your headline as big as possible if it works for the look that you're going for. And choose choose spacing options that will allow you to do that, and font sizes that allow you to do that. And I'm just going to change this back to a modern font. And now I can make it even bigger. I'm going to do 300. Okay, so now we're done with your listing card and we're moving on to the quote and testimonial card. And we are going to use the slide that we started yesterday. So remember that if you are choosing to move ahead with just no photo, then just follow along. Same rules apply, but we're going to be using what we started with yesterday. So we want to bring up a text box, T on the keyboard again, and you're going to type in your testimonial here. So Mary was awesome. She sold our home in 3 days over asking. Okay, and then we're going to make sure that it's the font we want. It's Montserrat, and this is way too small for anyone to be able to read on Canva, so we're going to bring that right up to, let's say, 64. The spacing looks a little bit off to me, so I'm just going to bring that in a bit. And the line height here is to adjust the space between lines, so I'm also going to adjust that. And then clearly, so you always want people to be able to read this, because if they have trouble reading it, they will move on. Remember, anything that makes it difficult to understand or appreciate an image, people are scrolling on by. They don't care enough to stop and decipher what you've done. So just keep in mind, you want to make it easy. So now that that's done, we're going to bring up another text box to put the person's name, and I'm going to say Susan B. And just to add a little bit of design flair, we're going to use a different font, so our second font, which is Antonio, and I'm going to bring that spacing right in. And this is not as important, so you can, it's okay for this to be hanging out around this guy's head, because it's not as important to be legible than the actual testimonial itself. So options for testimonial cards are, I'm just going to copy this box over because I want to use the same font, and I'm going to put something to contextualize what they're reading. So I'm going to call it kind words, and then I'm just going to make it big, because remember, rule number 4 is go bold. Be bold. Don't be afraid to be bold. I'm going to write it right here so that they know exactly what they're reading. Very blunt, you can write testimonial, just to contextualize what's happening on this card. Then I'm going to copy this again, and I'm going to write myurl.com, make that white so that people can read it. I'm writing my URL because I want to show some brand recognition, but not necessarily as much as this. So I'm going to put my website so that people know what these kind words, who they're speaking about. They don't have to think. They don't have to look at the profile picture, the profile name to understand what's going on. They know right away this testimonial belongs to this company. So that's something that we always like to include on testimonial cards, but optional, up to you completely. And that's it for the testimonial card. Okay, so on to slide number 3, which is your branded slide. Now is the time where if you don't have branding or a logo, you are going to hit T on your keyboard and type in your name. So once you've done that, you can decide whether or not you're going to use the fonts that you've already chosen, or this is the one time that you can deviate from that and choose a logo, a name logo font that you're going to use again and again and again. So think of this as almost creating a very, very, very simple logo, and you don't have to use the same fonts that you're using in your headings and subheadings. You can actually deviate from that, and as long as it's in the same category. So if your brand is Classic Luxe and you're using classical fonts, then don't all of a sudden switch to modern. There's going to be a disconnect there and it's not going to look good. So make sure that if you're using minimal fonts, you're choosing another minimal font for your name logo. For us, what we've done with John Dory is we're definitely sticking to Antonio Light, and I'm just going to put this down here, and then I'm going to hit T on my keyboard again, type in Realtor, the designation, and for this, we decided not to use Montserrat because we feel it is too bold, it's the weight of the font is too heavy, and it almost competes with the name, and we definitely want the attention to be on the name, not the designation. So we're going to flip that out to Assistant Extra Light, which looks really good. It just looks a little bit softer, and we're going to keep it there. Now, a good rule of thumb when you're doing a name logo is to make your name double the size of your designation, or your designation half the size of your name. So if John Dory is, for example, let's make John Dory a simple one like 80, then realtor should be just about 40 or around. Okay? And that generally, almost always, looks fantastic. So if you're not sure about the sizing, then that's a really good rule of thumb. And that is it for day 2, typography and copy. And I cannot wait to see you tomorrow on day 3, where we're talking all about color.